Today I'm talking about the tribulation temple that's going to be rebuilt. It has to be rebuilt before the middle of the tribulation. Many things have already happened to prepare to build the temple. I'll talk about that. I'm also talking about a recent Rasmussen poll of likely voters that shows the vast majority of Americans want traditional Western values taught in schools. And I'll be talking to parents now and everyone about how we must win this culture war for our children and for their schools. I'm going to be talking about why God chose the Jews, answering questions, and also how do you teach your children about the rapture without frightening them. I'm Jimmy Evans. Welcome to the Tipping Point Show. Welcome to the show today. We have a lot to talk about. And I want to begin by saying the 21-day journey, I've been talking about that now for several weeks. This is a resource that we have on XO now. It is a video resource, also has an accompanying journal, an online journal that comes with it. You can also get a physical journal if you want that too, but it takes you through 21-day journey of inner healing or 21-day journey of freedom if you have something you're trying to get free from. Really helpful, especially in the times that we're living in, being set free, being healed on the inside, maybe from past hurts, some things that you haven't gotten over from your childhood maybe, and they're still, holding you in bondage, or maybe it's something happened to you as an adult. But this is something that Karen and I both had to go through when we first got saved, and we're going through all the healing from our past. Really helpful, 21dayjourney.com/tipping point. And when you go on there, just put in the promo code Tipping Point, and you'll get 25% off your first month. Now, this message today is on the Tribulation Temple. I've been talking about a timeline. Next week's program is going to be the last in this timeline series that I've been doing. And I've been talking about all the way from the rapture of the church being number one, all the things that we can be looking for. And I'm going to be doing a summary of that next week to just kind of show you where we've been. But next week, I'm talking about the end of all things, how everything ends at the end of the book of Revelation, end of the Bible. And so I want to talk about the Tribulation Temple today because there has to be a rebuilt temple in Israel, on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. There has to be a rebuilt temple for there to be a tribulation. Let me begin in Daniel chapter 9. And this is the angel Gabriel talking to Daniel about the future of Israel. And now he's talking about the Antichrist. He says, but he, the Antichrist, shall confirm a covenant with many, that's Israel, for 1 week, that's 7 years. That's a week of years. But in the middle of the week, 3.5 years into the 7 years, he, the Antichrist, shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering, and on the wing of abomination shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out upon the desolate, or the desolator is another way to say that, is until God pours out his wrath on the Antichrist. And so there's going to be a temple with sacrifices because the sacrifices are going to be stopped by the Antichrist, and then he sets up the abomination of desolation. And I'll read to you exactly what that is because the Apostle Paul in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 tells us exactly what the abomination of desolation is. Well, the word abomination means repugnant or detestable to God. And so there's going to be, the Antichrist is going to do something that is an abomination in the temple. He's going to do something that is an abomination. The word desolation means to desolate. It means to empty of worshipers. Before the Antichrist does what he does in the middle of the tribulation, there's going to be priests, and there's going to be offerings, and there's going to be worship in the temple. When he's finished, there won't be anything. It will desolate the temple. So the abomination of desolation, that's what it is. And the book of Daniel refers to an abomination of desolation 4 times. Okay. Now this is important because a lot of people get confused when they're reading the book of Daniel because 2 of the references to the abomination of desolation in Daniel 8 and Daniel 11 are talking about Antiochus Epiphanes, who desolated the temple in 168 BC. Okay, and so the other 2 are referring to the Antichrist in the tribulation. Daniel 9 and Daniel 12 also talk about an abomination of desolation. They're talking now about a future event. And so Antiochus Epiphanes was a Syrian king of the Seleucid dynasty. And so he was a Syrian king who was horrible. He was a type of the Antichrist who came as just a precursor, as just a shadow of what's going to happen during the tribulation. And let me read this to you. It's the first abomination of desolation occurred on December 25th, 167 BC. On that date, Antiochus Epiphanes, a Seleucid king from 175 to 164 BC, ordered that an altar to Zeus be built on top of the altar of burnt offering in the Jerusalem temple. Antiochus Epiphanes then offered swine flesh to Zeus on the altar. This man, now this is just one of the ways that he desolated the temple and the abominations that he did. I'll read more in just a minute about something else that he did. This man, he outlawed Judaism. It was against the law to practice Judaism. It was against the law to circumcise your children. And when they found a baby boy that had been circumcised, they killed it and hung it around its mother's neck and made her walk around with her dead baby around her neck. Now, this man was a beast. This man is like the Antichrist. And twice in the book of Daniel, we are told about how he will set up an abomination of desolation. Let me read this to you out of Daniel chapter 8, because this is talking about Antiochus Epiphanes, not the Antichrist in the future. It's beginning in verse 9. Out of one of them came a little horn, which grew exceedingly great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the glorious land. And it grew up to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and some of the stars to the ground, and trampled them. He even exalted himself as high as the prince of the host. And by him the daily sacrifices were taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Because of transgression, an army was given over to the horn to oppose the daily sacrifices, and he cast truth to the ground. He did all of this and prospered. Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to that certain one who was speaking, how long will the vision be concerning the daily sacrifices and the transgression of desolation, the giving of both the sanctuary and the host to be trampled underfoot? And he said to me, for 2,300 days, and the sanctuary will be cleansed. Now, this is talking about an event that is going to take place for 2,300 days. Okay, this is not the tribulation. Okay, this is not the 3.5 years of the tribulation. This is a different length of time. Still someone taking away the sacrifices, which he did. Antiochus Epiphanes did. Someone who desolates the temple, which he did. So did this happen? Okay, this is the Messianic Bible Study Guide, and I'm quoting out of this now. It is also known from history that the abomination of desolation, the erection of the statue of Jupiter, was done on the 25th day of the month of Kislev in 168 BC. The sanctuary was cleansed on the 25th day of Kislev in 165 BC. So the entire duration of 2,300 days began September 9th, 171 BC with the death of Onias, until the rededication of the temple on December 25th, 165 BC. As always, prophecy was literally fulfilled. It was fulfilled exactly 2,300 days later. So Antiochus Epiphanes, this prophecy of Daniel 8 and Daniel 11 has already been fulfilled. Now, there are preterists, and I've taught you, if you read the articles on Tipping Point, you know that a preterist is someone who believes that the end times has already been fulfilled. All end times prophecy was fulfilled in the first century. Now, some preterists believe that it took till the 4th century. But when they see end time prophecy, they say, oh, been there, done that. That's all been fulfilled. It doesn't mean anything. And they'll look at Antiochus Epiphanes and they'll say, well, see, the abomination of desolation, that took place, in 167, 168 BC. Antiochus Epiphanes did that. That's already been done. 2 of the prophecies in Daniel have been fulfilled regarding the abomination of desolation. 2 have not been, and here are the words of Jesus. Okay, remember, Antiochus Epiphanes was 2 centuries before Jesus. So this is now Jesus in Mark chapter 13. When you see the abomination of desolation, he's talking about a future event, not a past event, a future event. when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing where it ought not, then it says in parentheses, let the reader understand. Those are the words of Jesus. Mark did not add that. Matthew, in Matthew 24, he did not add that. Jesus is saying, you really need to understand what I'm saying here. Let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who's on the housetop not go down into the house, nor enter to take anything out of his house. And let him who's in the field not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days. And pray that your flight may not be in winter. For in those days there will be tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of creation, which God created until this time, nor shall ever be. And unless the Lord had shortened those days, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, whom he chose, he shortened the days. Then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or look, he is there, do not believe it. For false Christ and false prophets will rise and show signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. But take heed, see, I have told you all things beforehand. Jesus is talking about a future event in the tribulation. In Matthew, Jesus said, then there'll be great tribulation, such as not happened in the history of the world until now. And unless those days would have been shortened, no flesh would have been saved. That's the tribulation. So Daniel, when he talks about the Antichrist setting up the abomination of desolation, he's talking about the tribulation. 3.5 years, this is a 7-year covenant. In the middle, this is the time of Jacob's sorrow. This is the 70th week of the 490 years, that the 70 weeks that Gabriel told Daniel about in Daniel chapter 9. And so in those 7 years, 3.5 years into it, there's going to be an abomination of desolation. Here's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. This is the Apostle Paul. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first. And the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. This is a rebuilt temple that is going to be on the Temple Mount in Israel, and the Antichrist, 3.5 years into the tribulation, he is going to go into that rebuilt temple. Remember, he's going to kill the 2 witnesses, 3.5 years into tribulation. He will stop the sacrifices, and then he will go in and proclaim himself God. That is the abomination of desolation. Now let's read about the temple here in Revelation 11. I'm just going to mention the 2 witnesses here because they're very much a part of the temple that's going and the way that the temple is going to be rebuilt. This is Revelation 11. I was given a reed like a measuring rod, and the angel stood, saying, rise and measure the temple of God, the altar and those who worship there, but leave out the court which is outside the temple. Do not measure it. For it has been given to the Gentiles, and they will tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months. That's 3.5 years. And I will give power to my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,260 days. That's 3.5 years. Clothed in sackcloth. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 lampstands standing before the God of the earth. And if anyone wants to harm them, fire proceeds from their mouth and devours their enemies. Let's stop right there. And so there's going to be a rebuilt temple in Jerusalem, and the 2 witnesses now will be ministering during that 3.5 year period of time, the first 3.5 years, when the temple is going to be rebuilt, when they're going to reinstitute the daily sacrifices. The 2 witnesses will be there. So let me give you 5 facts about the tribulation temple. Number 1, the temple will be rebuilt and animal sacrifices will be reinstituted before the middle of the tribulation. And this is the purpose now of like the Temple Institute. The Temple Institute in Israel, one of the questions today, by the way, someone asked is, should we be supporting financially the Temple Institute? They're great people. They're Jewish people. But they exist to see a temple rebuilt and animal sacrifices reinstituted. Okay, this is their stated purpose. And by the way, they already have, and I'll show you a picture here of a menorah. They already have the menorah prepared. This is covered with 200 pounds of gold. This is on display now in Jerusalem. Okay, so this is the menorah that they have prepared for the rebuilt temple. It's worth somewhere between $2 and $3 million. It's overlaid with I think it's 200 pounds of gold. It's absolutely gorgeous. Made under the specifications of Moses and what Moses told the children of Israel. And so that's ready to go. They have articles for service. In other words, the pitchers, the bowls, all the different articles for service. They've been making these now for many years. They have the priestly garments. They have the ephod with all the stones in it, exactly the way that Moses said to build it. It's ready to go. The Temple Mount Faithful. They have the cornerstone ready to go. When they build the temple, the cornerstone is ready to be laid. In the Jordan Valley, they have a school of priests. These are the Cohens, those of the priestly bloodline, and they are training them how to minister in the temple. They've been training for 25 years. These things that have been happening, we talk about, rebuilding the temple. The Jews are ready to go. They have been doing this for many, many years. You can go on, I think it's the templeinstitute.org, and you can see what they have been doing. It's absolutely remarkable. They are not standing flat-footed. There's a tremendous amount of activity in Jerusalem right now for rebuilding the temple. Here's the second fact about the temple. The tribulation temple will share the Temple Mount with Gentiles, okay? Because it says, measure the temple, but not the outer court. It's been given to the Gentiles. I want to show you a picture here of the temple. This is the Temple Mount in Israel. This is the Dome of the Rock. This is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And you'll notice that there is this empty area here, and this is the Golden Gate here, but this is the empty area here, and some people say this is where the Jews will rebuild the temple, but that's not what the Jews say. Now, there's a lot of argument about where the temple is going to be built on the Temple Mount. Well, there's some people that say the Temple Mount's located, down here to the south. So let me just say, there's a lot of argument on that, and I'm not going to join in that argument at all. Here's what I'm going to say. The people that are going to make the decision about where the temple is built are the Sanhedrin, the Jewish council that exists today in Israel, the Temple Mount, the Temple Institute, the Temple Mount Faithful, all those kinds of people. They're the ones that are going to rebuild. That is the consensus of, like the Temple Institute, all this has to be torn down. They're saying this is in the way. Even the Al-Aqsa Mosque. According to them, they're saying we have got to cleanse the Temple Mount of all of that. Well, so here's what John was told in Revelation 11. Measure the temple, but leave out the outer court, because it's been given to trample the Gentiles to trample. When it says that the Gentiles trample, it means they have authority for 3.5 years up here. So what I believe is there will be some of this, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, some of this will remain, but I believe this will be torn down. You say, well, how in the world can they tear that down without starting World War III? The two witnesses. The two witnesses are bulletproof. I just read you the scripture. It says, measure the outer court, and here are my two witnesses here. And if anyone tries to kill them, they call fire down from heaven. If anyone tries to kill them, they're killed in like manner. It doesn't matter if 300 million angry radical Muslims attack Jerusalem, the two witnesses cannot be harmed. They are going to protect the temple builders. And by the way, they're also going to protect them as they reinstitute animal sacrifices. The world will go crazy. When the Jews began to sacrifice animals on the Temple Mount, the world will go berserk. You can imagine all the animal rights groups and what they're going to do when there are animal sacrifices on the Temple Mount. They cannot be touched when the two witnesses are present. So I'm just saying to you, I'm not going to decide where the temple's built. You're not going to decide where the temple's built. So our opinions really just don't matter. The ones that are going to decide are going to be the Sanhedrin, the Temple Institute, people like that. And it is their consensus, and you can read their own stuff. It's their consensus the Dome of the Rock has to come down. In fact, most of them believe the Al-Aqsa Mosque has to come down. But according to Revelation 11, because it's a shared property, according to John, that what he was told is the outer court's going to be given over to the Gentiles to trot underfoot for 3.5 years. And so I believe there'll be something present up there that will kind of throw a bone to, other religions and Muslims or whatever. But the temple is going to be in that area, according to them. The third truth is the temple cannot be rebuilt without an unblemished red heifer to sanctify the Temple Mount and the priest. And you can see this now on YouTube. The Temple Institute has a video. You can see it on their website too. And they've been trying for decades now to find a red heifer. When they find a red heifer, Jesus is coming. You can just write that down. And they're trying very hard. They do have a couple of candidates right now. and they cannot have more than 2 hairs on the body. The red heifer cannot have more than 2 hairs on its body that are not red. And so one of the red heifers they have right now has several hairs that are not red, but they're waiting to see if it's going to change. They could change back to red or whatever. But as of this moment, they don't have a candidate that has been deemed acceptable. Okay, that could change any day, but they're looking very hard. But they have to have a red heifer to cleanse. This is part of the Levitical law, to cleanse from uncleanness, contact with the dead, those types of things. They had to have the ashes of a red heifer to purify. And so it again is the consensus of the Sanhedrin in Jerusalem that they cannot cleanse the Temple Mount for the temple nor the priest without the ashes of a red heifer. Number 4, worship and sacrifice cannot be resumed without the presence of the Ark of the Covenant. Now, this is a big deal. You may have seen Raiders of the Lost Ark and all that stuff. They have to have the Ark of the Covenant in that temple, or the sacrifices and offerings and worship are not meaningful. Okay, here's what the Temple Institute, now this is the Temple Institute's statement. Tradition records that even as King Solomon built the first temple, he already knew through divine inspiration that eventually it would be destroyed. Thus Solomon, the wisest of all men, oversaw the construction of a vast system of labyrinths, mazes, chambers, and corridors underneath the Temple Mount complex. He commanded that a special place be built in the bowels of the earth where the sacred vessels of the temple could be hidden in case of an approaching danger. Midrashic tradition teaches that King Josiah of Israel, who lived about 40 years before the destruction of the first temple, commanded the Levites to hide the ark together with the original menorah and several other items in this secret hiding place which Solomon had prepared. This location is recorded in our sources, and today there are those who know exactly where this chamber is, and we know that the ark is still there, undisturbed, and waiting for the day when it will be revealed. And so, according to the Temple Institute, they know exactly where the ark is. It's under the Temple Mount, in these mazes and labyrinths that Solomon built specifically to hide these articles from an approaching enemy. And so there are several priests now in Israel that say that they've seen it, that they're eyewitnesses to the fact that the Ark of the Covenant is there. Here's number 5. The Tribulation Temple will be the site of the abomination of desolation that marks the beginning of the Great Tribulation. There is a coming Antichrist, and the way that we know that is not just through the Scripture, but it's look what's happening in Jerusalem today. Look at the activity on the Temple Mount. Look at the preparations that are taking place, the building momentum of there being a rebuilt temple. And all of that means there's going to be a temple, there's going to be an Antichrist, and everything the Bible says would take place is about to take place very quickly. And what this means is, for us, is Jesus is coming, that we're not going to be here through all of this. And this is the encouragement I give every time I talk about this. We're not going to be here. We're going to go at the very beginning in the rapture. But for people who are here on the earth, they will see a rebuilt temple, and they also will see, if they're still alive, they'll see the abomination of desolation. Now, if you're not a subscriber, I'm going to say goodbye to you. I'm going to come back. I'm going to talk about this issue of what's being taught in our schools and answering some questions. If you're not a subscriber, endtimes.com, go on there, $7 a month, $77 a year. If you sign up monthly, your first month is free, so you can just kind of check us out there. If you're not a subscriber, I'm going to say goodbye to you. If you are a subscriber, stay tuned. On today's program, I'm talking about 7 major end time signs that prove that we're not just living in the end times, we're living at the end of the end times. I'm also talking about the Biden administration's war on gender and 2 things that they're doing right now for the very first time in American history that are unbelievable. I'm also answering your questions. I'm Jimmy Evans. Welcome to the Tipping Point Show. Welcome to the show today. I want to, first of all, just encourage you to subscribe to my channel if you're watching this on YouTube, and like it. So the more you do that, the more people see this, and the more people are able to get these messages and get the encouragement from them. But thank you for joining me today. I want to bring this message, first of all, on 7 major end times signs. Now, these are all specific to Israel, But these are all from the Word of God, and they all prove now that we're living in the end times. If you have friends, if you have family members or someone around you, and they're scoffers, and they scoff at the end times, these things that I'm about to tell you, these are absolutely undeniable signs that the Bible foretold thousands of years ago would happen in the last generation, and they've all happened in the last 73 years. So this is Genesis chapter 1. This is where I want to begin. God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth." And it was so. So God created the lights in the heavens, and he said, let these be for signs and for seasons. Well, the word sign in the Hebrew is the word oath, and it means a signal, a banner, something that's showing you, like a sign on the highway. You're going down the highway, and the signs on the highway tell you where you're going and how far away you are. That's exactly what signs do related to the end times. The word season is the Hebrew word moed. It means feast, like the Feast of Israel. It also means an appointed time or a sacred season. So God is telling us now in the stars, from the very beginning in Genesis 1, when God created the heavens and the lights in the firmament, he said, I'm doing this to show the people on the earth signs and also special seasons, sacred seasons, the Feast of Israel. So understand this, from the very beginning, God established a universal method of communicating to mankind about important things that were happening and would happen in history, especially regarding Israel. And understand this, these are universal. So when Jesus was born the first time, when he came to the earth the first time, there was a star that led the wise men to Bethlehem. Now the world, it was there for all the world to see. I mean, it wasn't just there for the wise men. Everybody could see it. But people didn't care, or they weren't watching for it. And so the entire earth is being warned by God right now in this generation from signs in the sun, moon, and stars. This is Jesus in Luke 21 regarding the end times. There will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars, and on the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them from fear, and the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. Jesus is talking about the end times. That's the context of Luke chapter 21. There's going to be signs. I'm going to be showing you things in the sun, the moon, and the stars. They're going to be pointing to my soon return. I'm going to be showing you signs. Well, the question is, have there been signs? The first two major end time signs I want to talk to you about are absolutely incredible things that have happened in the sun, moon, and stars in the last 73 years. Okay, remember, this is Joel now, that there's going to be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. This is Joel chapter 2, talking about the end. It says, I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness, that is a solar eclipse, and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and awesome day of the Lord. Well, the coming of the great and awesome day of the Lord is the return of Jesus, the second coming of Jesus and the rapture. And so before that day comes, Joel says, and by the way, this is what Peter quoted in Acts chapter 2, okay, about the end times. So there's going to be blood moons, and there's going to be solar eclipses, okay, in a special way. God is going to show us signs in the heavens that are revealing to us something special is happening. The question is, has it happened? Well, I want to talk about two phenomenal end time signs that have happened in the heavens that had to be God. The first are the blood moons. I don't know if you've heard about the establishment of blood moons, but by the way, a lunar eclipse is a blood moon. When the earth gets between the sun and the moon turns red. It's a blood moon. And so this is what Joel was talking about. Well, there have been 3 sets of tetrads. Now, a tetrad is a set of 4 lunar eclipses that happen back to back in 2 years on Jewish holy days. This would be on Passover. You see the graphic there right now on your screen. Now, these are the tetrad that happened in 2014, 2015. And so on Sukkot of 2014 and 15, you had a blood moon. And then, on Passover, you had a blood moon. Then on Sukkot, you had another blood moon, back to back. This is 4 lunar eclipses, blood moons, that happened over a 2-year period of time, all on Jewish holy days. Now, that happened in 1949 and 50. Remember, Israel became a nation in 1948, and the tetrad of blood moons, like you just saw there, happened in 1949 and 1950, all on Jewish holy days. Then in 1967, the Six-Day War was fought, and Jerusalem was unified. This is what Jesus prophesied in Luke 21, that they would be scattered, and then Jerusalem be trodden underfoot by Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles were fulfilled. That was fulfilled in 1967, and in 1967 and 1968, there were 4 blood moons, all on Jewish holy days. Israel becomes a nation, blood moons. The city of Jerusalem is unified, blood moons. Then in 2014 and 2015, there are 4 more blood moons, the ones you just saw, plus there was a solar eclipse in 2014 on the first day of Israel's religious calendar, and there was a partial solar eclipse on the Feast of Trumpets, okay, during the tetrads. Okay, so what is the significance of those blood moons? Well, here's what I believe. In the ones in 1949 and 1950, that was the Holy Land. The Holy Land was given back to Israel. In 1967, 1968, it was the Holy City of Jerusalem, had come back under control of Jerusalem for the first time in 2,000 years. But in 2014 and 15, a lot of people are saying, what's the significance of that? It's the Holy Temple. The activity around the temple picked up huge around 2014, 2015. And by the way, right now, the Sanhedrin is creating the anointing oil to anoint the Messiah when he comes. Everything is ready for the temple. They have all the artifacts ready for the temple, all the temple vessels. They're training priests down in the valley of Jericho. They're training priests. And so they're ready to rebuild. And this is something, and by the way, the Jews for the first time in 2,000 years are praying, legally praying on the Temple Mount and gathering there, sometimes by the hundreds or thousands. It's an amazing thing that's happened. And it started around 2014, 2015, and I believe soon we will see the rebuilding of the temple. That is a major, major end-time sign that is in the heavens. It's undeniable. You can look that up on NASA. You can look it up on different types of astronomy programs. The blood moons are real, and they haven't happened. These kinds of things don't happen now for hundreds of years at a time. So these are not regular phenomenon. A lunar eclipse is, but not a tetrad on Jewish holy days. The second major end-time sign related to the sun, moon, and stars is the Revelation 12 sign that happened on September the 23rd, 2017. Now, what I'm about to say to you is the second most important thing that has happened in my lifetime regarding the end times. Now, I was born in 1953, so I wasn't around when Israel became a nation. But I was around in 1967 when Jerusalem was reunified. That's the most important thing that's happened prophetically in my lifetime. The second most important thing was the Revelation 12 sign on September 23rd, 2017. Here's the Revelation 12 sign. This is Revelation 12 describing now an end times astronomical sign that's going to happen. You see a graphic there on your screen. Now, this is Revelation 12. Let me read the scripture, then I'll explain the graphic to you. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. Then being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on his heads. His tail drew a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. She bore a male child who is to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up to God in his throne. Then the woman fled into the wilderness where she has prepared a place by God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Now, this was literally fulfilled. Now, there is a prophetic fulfillment here related to Israel, but you see on the screen there, you see this graphic. Let me explain it to you. So on September 23rd, 2017, the constellation Leo was above the head of the constellation Virgo. Of course, Virgo is the Virgin, Leo is the Lion. And so the Virgin is Mary. And of course, Leo is Jesus. But you have, Leo has 9 stars. Remember, it says that there was a garland of 9 stars over her head. Well, the Leo has 9 major stars that make up the outline. But on September the 23rd of 2017, Mercury, Mars, and Venus joined those 9 stars to make 12 stars that were over the head of the Virgo, constellation Virgo. And then the sun, you'll notice on that graphic there, the sun was over Virgo's shoulder, the Virgin's shoulder. In other words, she was clothed with the sun, and the moon was under her feet. You can see it right there. Then Jupiter, which is called the king planet, which the Jews associate with the Messiah. Now, this is extraordinary. The Jupiter entered the womb of Virgo on November the 20th of 2016 and retrograded, which means it stayed in the same place. It looked like it was staying in the same place. It retrograded from February to July, then exited the womb on September the 9th, 2017. It was inside the womb exactly 41 weeks, which is the time of human gestation. And then it came out. It came out between the legs of Virgo. It exited the legs of Virgo. And by the way, it says that the male child was caught up. That's raptured, harpazo. And this is the next graphic here. You'll see now that between the legs of Virgo, there was a red, creepy object. I mean, this is, it's really, it's incredible. This is between her legs, and it was redacted by NASA and also by Google Sky. And you say, why? Redacted means they put a little black box over it to block it out from being there. And you can see it if you look carefully between the legs of Virgo there. You'll see that little black box. You'll also see this is the actual image that they're blocking out there. It is this creepy red, it is infrared, is creepy red creature that looks like a dragon with 12 heads and all that kind of stuff like that. This actually happened on September 23rd, 2017. And so I'm saying to you, this is absolutely amazing. When Jesus said there will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars, you can check that box. 2 major end-time signs have appeared in the heavens. By the way, there's a software program called Stellarium, and this is where some of those pictures come from. By the way, that one of those charts there was a Louis Vega chart. He does phenomenal charts there. But I'm saying to you, you can look this stuff up. God created in Genesis chapter 1 universal signs that the whole world could see. Well, like Jesus came the first time, people didn't care. They weren't paying attention. But Jesus Christ came, and the nation missed it by and large. But there were watchers. There were people watching. The world right now, most people could care less, but you're watching this because you care. And I'm saying in the last 73 years, if we are the last generation, okay, in Psalm 90 says, the days of a man's life are 70 years, or if by reason of strength, they're 80 years. We're 73 years into since Israel was regathered. Let me go very quickly through the next 5 signs. The number 3, this is the number 3 major sign, is the sign of Israel's rebirth for the second time. This is Isaiah 11. It shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of the people who are left from Assyria and Egypt, from Pathros and Cush, from Elam and Shinar, from Hamath and the islands of the sea. He will set up a banner for the nations and will assemble the outcast of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the 4 corners of the earth. Now, remember, the first time that God regathered Israel was from Babylon. He didn't gather them from the 4 corners of the earth. It was just from Babylon. This says God will, for the second time, set his hand again to regather Israel from the 4 corners of the earth. That happened on May the 14th of 1948. That is what started. That was the major sign that started the end times prophetic clock. You can't have the end times without Israel existing as a nation. Here's number 4. It's the sign of Jerusalem under Jewish rule. This is Luke 21. This is Jesus. When you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation is near. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Then let those who are in the midst of her depart. And let not those who are in the country enter her. For these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe to those who are pregnant, and to those who are nursing babies in those days, for there will be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they will fall by the edge of the sword, and be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem will be trampled by Gentiles until the times the Gentiles are fulfilled. Now, Jesus prophesied that 40 years before it came to pass. By the way, Daniel also in Daniel 9 prophesied exactly the same thing, that the Jerusalem would be destroyed. But Jesus also says Jerusalem will be trodden underfoot by the Gentiles until the times the Gentiles are fulfilled. So the Roman general Titus came, he killed over 1 million Jews. He destroyed the city of Jerusalem. He destroyed the sanctuary. He took the rest of the Jews captive and led them back to Rome, scattered them around the world, just like the Bible says they would. But then in 1967, Jerusalem was reunited under Jewish control, and that was a major, major end-time sign. Now, these things, like I said, these are from the Bible. This has been in circulation for thousands of years. These are not new things, and they're not esoteric. They're not secret or hard to divine. These are clear scriptures that say things that are going to happen in the end times. This is the next sign, the sign of the division of the land of Israel, Joel 3. For behold, in those days and at that time, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, like we just said, I will also gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. And I will enter into judgment with them there on account of my people, my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations. They have also divided up my land. I've been talking to you about the Biden administration. They're trying now to take East Jerusalem. They're trying to open a consulate in East Jerusalem for the Palestinians, which gives the Palestinians ownership of East Jerusalem. It recognizes the Palestinians as having the ownership of East Jerusalem. Israel's saying, why don't they put it over in Ramallah? Why don't they put it on the West Bank? The Biden administration says, no, we want to put it in East Jerusalem. We want to recognize the Palestinians' right to East Jerusalem. They want to take away the Golan Heights. They want to move them out of the West Bank and out of East Jerusalem where they have settlements. The land, they took away Gaza. They took away the Sinai. The land of Israel is being divided by the United States, by the United Nations. This is happening in your lifetime, and God says that He is angry, that He is going to bring all the nations down and to enter into judgment with them there at the same time. In those days and at that time, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, I'm going to enter into judgment with all the nations because of the way they've treated my people. They've scattered them around the nations, and they've divided up my land. And by the way, it is God's land. No man can claim that land. It is God's land. This is sign number 6. The sign of Jerusalem being the most controversial piece of property on the earth that would cause Armageddon. Jerusalem right now, in the news right now, is in the news more than any other place. It is the most difficult foreign policy issue of the entire earth. No one can solve that problem. This is Zechariah chapter 12. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of drunkenness to all the surrounding people when they lay siege against Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall happen in that day that I will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all peoples. All who would heave it away will surely be cut in pieces, though all the nations of the earth are gathered against it. The last scene of human history is the entire earth coming against Jerusalem. And during the Obama administration, the United Nations was trying to impose a two-state solution on Israel. Impose means they're going to militarily impose. They're going to force Israel to give up East Jerusalem. And this is what's going to happen. They're not going to give up East Jerusalem. The Jews have consistently said that Jerusalem is the eternal, indivisible capital of Israel. The world will hate them for that. They will continue to pressure them for that. This is happening in our news right now. You don't have to look around to make this thing happen. This is happening right now. But it's going to get worse until the point that there's an ultimatum given by the United Nations, the armies of the world, but they will ultimately come against Israel. Jerusalem is the most difficult issue today and the most contested piece of real estate on the earth. And here's sign number 7, the sign of worldwide anti-Semitism, Zechariah 14. Behold, the day of the Lord is coming, and your spoil will be divided in your midst, for I will gather all the nations to battle against Jerusalem. The city shall be taken, the houses rifled, the women ravished, half the city shall go into captivity, but the remnant of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then the Lord will go forth and fight against those nations as he fights in the day of battle. Jerusalem, Israel right now, the Jewish people, they're persecuted all over the world. This is the most persecuted group of people in the history of the world. I mean, generationally, for millennia. Right now in France, tremendous anti-Semitism in France, Germany, the EU in general, also in the United States, college campuses, many cities around America, there is increasing anti-Semitism. This is a major sign of the end times. So I've just told you about 7 major signs that have already happened. These aren't things that are going to happen. These things are already happened. And I said at the beginning of this teaching, I'm not just saying that we're living in the end times. I'm saying we're living at the end of the end times. And if there's ever been a time that we need to be looking up and watching for Jesus to come, in the midst of all the lousy stuff that's happening in the world, Jesus is coming. And that's what I keep telling you is the whole purpose of this program is to educate and encourage. I want to educate you about end-time theology, end-time scriptures, and I want to encourage you that everything that is happening is telling us that Jesus is coming. Now, we're going to go to the subscriber-only portion right now. I'm going to talk about the Biden administration, the war on gender, 2 things that they are doing right now, the Biden administration, that have never been done before, that every person needs to understand. I'm also answering questions. Hey, if you're not a subscriber, $7 a month, $77 a year, endtimes.com. Go there, become a subscriber so you can get everything we get. And we have articles through the week. We have all kinds of other stuff. I'm interviewing Mark Biltz, Pastor Mark Biltz, and also I'm interviewing Pastor Billy Crone next week. We have interviews that are coming up, all kinds of good stuff, not just the Tipping Point Show. I want you to be able to get all of it. $7 a month, $77 a year. If you are a subscriber to endtimes.com, you can't watch the full version here on YouTube. You've got to go over to endtimes.com. And so thank you for joining us. Subscribers, stay tuned.